Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, and welcome to my Rebel Tantive here at Bleeped Productions. My name is Lee, and today we have a new episode of our Imperial Assault campaign, and today's mission is called Under Siege. And this leads us beautifully into today's mission. In this series, we have been swapping in and out heroes to give myself and you, the viewers, the best Imperial Assault lineup. Now, you're not supposed to do this, as you are supposed to stick with a character throughout the whole campaign, but I've done a bit of a homebrew for my Imperial Assault for this, as after missions, some characters might need to rest due to taking too much damage from a previous mission, so giving this series a bit of an XCOM feel. So with that being said, our Rebel squad for today's mission is Jin, Fen, Garken and Gideon. And today's mission is all about defending an Imperial facility. The Rebel squad have 5 areas of this facility to defend. If no one is in that area and an Imperial figure is in that area, the Imperial player will score that area at the end of the round. So the Rebel squad has to keep these areas contested and survive 8 rounds, because that's how long today's scenario is, 8 rounds. And with the Imperial forces, they need to either capture all 5 areas of this facility or cause the Rebel squad to be withdrawn. So, with that being said, guys, let's get straight into today's scenario, Under Siege. Command has assigned you a brutal but simple task. You're to cause a diversion, allowing another team to investigate a facility under Weiss's control. The instructions from your commander were clear. Don't jam or cut off any signals, she told you. If they send any calls for help, good. If they don't, then you didn't make enough noise.
Increase fire, man. Taking fire.
Considering the sheer amount of Imperial weight now bearing down on the compound, you certainly succeeded in making enough noise. After removing the Imperial presence from the facility, you make preparations to defend it. Many of the doors are sealed off, barricaded against the possibility of troops coming in through another entrance. You're expecting they'll try, but hopefully your hasty fortifications will hold long enough to keep their numbers manageable. Round 1 begins, and Fen is going to activate first for the Rebel squad.
Just point me in the right direction.
And before his activation, he will use tactical movement, granting him 2 additional movement points.
Let's get moving.
And for his first action, it is to interact with the crate next to him, and he finds himself a Bacta infusion, which is a medical item granting him this ability. Discard this card during your activation to choose yourself or an adjacent friendly figure. The chosen figure recovers 3 health and may discard 1 or more harmful conditions. His second action is to move up the facility's corridor to the door. First to activate for the Imperial forces is the E-Web Engineer.
Surrender at once.
And for both his actions this round, he will move around the north perimeter of the taken facility. Next to activate for the Rebel squad is Jin.
If anyone tries to capture me, I'll incinerate their brain.
And for her first activation, it is to interact with the crate also, and Jin finds an adrenaline stim. And again, this is a medical item, and the card states, discard this card during your activation to choose yourself or an adjacent friendly figure. The chosen figure recovers 3 strain and becomes focused. Then, for her second action, she will join Fen at the door. Second to activate for the Imperial forces is the Imperial Officer.
I want those rebels dead.
And for his first action, he will use his Order ability, allowing a friendly figure within 2 spaces to perform a move, and one of the stormtroopers will advance to the east side of the captured facility.
Target sighted.
His second action is to move to the north side of the facility and join the E-Web engineer. Third to activate for the Rebel squad is Gideon.
You carry the weight of much experience, my friend.
And like his fellow squad mates, his first action is to interact with the crate next to him, and he finds a C1 comlink, which is a tool, and stated on the card, discard this card at the start of a round to choose and exhaust a regular deployment card. Then, for his second action, it's to advance up the taken Imperial facility and ready to give out orders next round. Last to activate for the Imperial forces is the Stormtrooper squad.
All right, men. I need backup here.
The squad advances up the facility's eastern side, preparing to begin the siege on the fallen facility. The first trooper, who moved thanks to the Order ability of the Imperial officer, will begin the siege by shooting the door first. The door has 6 health and has a built-in 1 defense. And with that roll, the trooper will do 2 damage to the door. The next trooper alongside him will take shot at the door next. And with that roll, it isn't that great, so the trooper will use squad training, as he is adjacent to a trooper, and will re-roll the green dice. It's the same result, so the trooper will turn the surge on the blue dice to 1 damage, so the door will take another 2 damage, leaving it on 2 health. And the final trooper advances up the forest to support his fellow troopers for the next round. Last to activate this round is Garkin. And for the Wookiee's first action, he will interact with the crate, and he finds a emergency med pack, another medical item, and the card states, discard this card after you rest. You or an adjacent friendly figure recovers 5 health. And for his second action, he will then move up the facility to set up for the next round, as he heard the door near his position being shot at. And with that, round 1 has ended, and the siege has begun. The Imperial forces have begun their assault on the fallen compound, and the Rebel squad has geared up and will begin their immense task of fending off the Empire's assault, and causing enough of a distraction for their comrades to find information about the new Imperial threat. Round 2, and the Imperial player's threat goes from 0 to 4, and chooses not to reinforce. At the beginning of this round's activation, Fen will use tactical movement, granting Jin 2 additional movement points.
Let's get moving.
And first to activate this turn is Garkin. And in this scenario, doors don't block line of sight for the Rebel player, so Garkin will take a shot at one of the Stormtroopers, as he is equipped with a vintage blaster. The first shot's rolled, and does no damage as the trooper blocks all of the damage. So Garkin's second action is to shoot at him once more. This time the roll is a bit better, and Garkin will spend a surge turning it to 1 damage, and the Stormtrooper's total damage taken by this blaster is 2. Next to activate is the Imperial officer.
For the Emperor!
And for his first action, he will use Order once again, but this time on the E-Web engineer, allowing the gunner to move around and set up his E-Web at the facility's door. Then, for his second action, the officer will move around to the side of the gunner, ready to begin the siege on the north side of the fallen facility.
You've got a clear shot.
Second to activate for the rebel squad is Jin,
Should we band together, we'll survive this. Our enemies will not.
and her first activation is to walk into the main corridor of the facility, because in this scenario, doors for the rebel models don't hinder their movement or block line of sight. She will then set up by the other door, and for her second action, she will shoot at the E-Web engineer with her DH-17. She shoots at the engineer, and with that roll, the engineer blocks 2 of the damage, but Jin will spend 1 surge to add 1 damage and pierce 1, allowing a damage to go through. So the engineer will take 3 damage from Jin's blaster. Next to activate is the E-Web engineer,
Focus all firepower.
and for his first action, he will shoot at the door in front of him. But Jin will interrupt the action with her ability Quick Draw, and Quick Draw allows Jin to perform a pistol attack or blaster attack targeting that figure. She gains 2 strain for doing this, and will shoot at the engineer. And with this shot, the engineer blocks 2 of the damage, but Jin will spend that surge to apply 1 damage and 1 pierce. And on top of that, she also has the card Cheap Shot, which, if she uses Quick Draw, apply 1 damage to the attack result. And with that roll, and with the cards Jin has, the engineer will take another 3 damage and is defeated. Next to activate is Gideon,
I cannot promise your safety here.
and for his first action, he will use the ability Command, allowing him to choose another friendly figure within 3 spaces to interrupt and either perform 1 move or 1 attack, and he will command Garken to try and finish off the stormtrooper he shot at earlier. Garken will shoot, and with that roll, the Wookiee will defeat the stormtrooper, doing 3 damage to the trooper. For Gideon's second action, he will command again, this time inspiring Jin to take a shot at the Imperial officer. And with that roll, she shoots, but doesn't get the range for the shot, so she misses.
Interesting.
Last to activate for the Imperial forces is the Stormtrooper squad.
Target sighted.
The first trooper will take aim at the door, and the trooper shoots at the door, and it will be destroyed, breaching the rebels' defenses. And for his second action, he will run into the facility. The second trooper will take a shot at Garken,
Hostile in sight.
and with that roll, Garken tanks a lot of the damage, but 1 will go through, taking his health total to 13. Then, that trooper will enter the facility for his second action, joining his teammate in the facility. Last to activate for the Rebel squad is Fen,
Beats the hell out of basic training.
and for his first action, he will move into the main corridor of the facility, and joining Jin at the door, as doors don't hinder movement or line of sight. For his second action, he will take aim at the lone Imperial officer. The roll goes as follows. The officer blocks the surge, but again, the shot hasn't got the range and misses its intended target.
Well, I'll be damned.
And that will bring an end to round 2. The Imperial forces have successfully breached the facility on the east side, but have taken casualties. The rebels are standing firm for now, but this was only wave 1. For every trooper you cut down, it seems as though 3 more take its place. Though the pressure continues to mount, the base is still under the rebel control, for the time being. At the end of round 2, the Imperials' threat increases by 5, and some Royal Guards are deployed on the battlefield to the north entrance of the facility. Round 3, and the Imperial player's threat goes from 9 to 13, and the Imperial player will deploy a probe droid and a regular squad of stormtroopers,
All right, men. Let's teach this one a lesson.
costing him 9 threat in total, taking the threat down to 4. Round 3 will begin, and Fen will grant Gideon 2 additional movement points thanks to tactical movement.
Let's get moving.
And first to activate for the Rebel squad is Garken. And he is focusing on that Stormtrooper squad, and will use his ability Charge, allowing him to move a number of spaces up to his speed and make a melee attack afterwards. Garkin charges around the room, becoming base to base with both troopers, and armed with a BD-1 Viro axe, he swings at the trooper. And with that roll, the trooper blocks 2, but will take 1 damage for this. And Garkin will spend 1 surge to cleave 2 damage, and the adjacent trooper will take 2 damage because of this. Garkin's second action is to attack the Stormtrooper, who took cleave damage last turn. And with that roll, Garkin will defeat that trooper. And with that surge too, he will spend it again for cleave 2, which will also defeat the other trooper also. First to activate for the Imperial forces this round are the Royal Guard, and for both their actions, they will walk up to the north entrance, as they have a lot of health and a force to be reckoned with. Next to activate for the Rebel squad is Jin,
I'll show you how to fight.
and seeing the threat of Royal Guards in front of her, she opens fire with both of her actions at one of the Royal Guard. The first shot with her DH-17 does damage, but the Royal Guard blocks it all. Luckily, she uses a surge to apply Pierce 1, so she does 1 damage to one of the guardsmen. Her second shot has the same result. With that roll, Jin will do another damage to the guardsman. But because of her ability Opportunist, she will move away from the door. This will end her activation. Next to activate this turn is the Imperial Officer.
It's easy when they're stupid.
He will move up to the facility's north entrance for his first action, and for his second action, he will take a shot at the door. And with that roll, the Imperial Officer does 2 damage to the door, as it has a built-in 1 defense. Next to activate is Fen.
Let's see what you've got.
With him adjacent to the door, he will shoot at the undamaged Royal Guard, and will apply Havoc Shot to this roll, granting the attack Blast 1. And with that roll, the guardsman blocks 1 damage, and Fen will spend 1 surge to apply 2 damage to the roll, meaning that guardsman will take 3 damage. And because of Blast, the other guard will take 1 damage, and so will Fen, taking his health total to 11. And for his second action, Fen will shoot again at the same target, and also using Havoc Shot once more. This time, the Royal Guard cancels out one of Fen's surges, so Fen will use the other surge to do another 2 damage, but that shot's total damage is 4 damage to the guardsman, and because of Havoc Shot, the other guardsman will take 1 more damage, and so will Fen, taking his health total to 10. Next to activate is the Probe Droid, and it will use both of its actions to move into the eastern part of the fallen Imperial facility. Next to activate is Gideon for the Rebel squad,
There is much going on that is unsettling.
and for his first action, it is to rest, so he will recover all of his strain, and for his second action this turn, he will target the Probe Droid that has entered the eastern part of the facility, and with that roll, the Probe Droid blocks 2 of the damage, but Gideon will spend 1 surge to apply 1 more damage, making the Probe Droid taking 2 damage from his attack. Last to activate is the Stormtrooper squad,
All right, men, load your weapons.
and for their actions this turn, they will all run into the facility's eastern side. At the end of round 3, an Imperial event happens. The front door to the facility explodes, and any rebel figures within 3 spaces will take 1 red dice of damage. This means Fen and Jin will be hit by this explosion, and they will take 2 damage each because of this event. And after this event, round 3 ends, and the Imperial forces have stormed the eastern side and also have blown up the main entrance to the facility. The Rebel squad are holding a strong, united front, but let's see how this pans out for them in round 4. Round 4 begins, and the Imperial player's threat goes from 4 to 8, and the Imperial player deploys another Stormtrooper squad.
Surrender at once.
And he does this for 6 threat, taking their threat from 8 to 2, and they will deploy to the north entrance of the Fallen facility. And Fen will grant Gideon 2 additional movement points this turn, thanks to tactical movement, because it is the beginning of the round.
Let's get moving.
First to activate this round for the Rebel squad is Jin,
If this is not appealing to you, we have nothing to talk about.
and she is going to shoot the already wounded Royal Guard for her first action. And with that roll, she does enough damage to defeat that Royal Guard. And after that shot, she'll use Opportunist to move 1 space back into the facility. For Jin's second action, she'll shoot the remaining Royal Guard. And with that roll, the Guard blocks 2 damage, but she'll spend the surge to apply 1 damage and 1 pierce, giving the Guard a total of 3 damage taken, leaving him on 1 health. First to activate for the Imperial forces is the lone Royal Guardsman, and for his first action, it is to attack Fen, but Jin will interrupt, using her quick draw ability for 2 strain to shoot the Guardsman before he has the opportunity to attack Fen. The Guardsman blocks 3 damage, but because it was the ability Quick Draw and Jin has also the ability Cheap Shot, applying 1 damage to the roll, her DH17 again using that surge for 1 damage and pierce 1, the Guardsman is defeated. Next to activate for the Rebel squad is Garkin, and for his first action, he will charge into the Stormtrooper squad that entered the facility last round, using his charge ability once again, and with that roll, he does 2 damage to 1 Stormtrooper, as he blocked the other 2. And for the Wookiee's second action, he will attack an adjacent Stormtrooper, and with that roll, the Viro Axe will do 2 points of damage to that trooper, and Garkin will spend the other surge to apply Cleave 2, defeating the previous hit Stormtrooper and applying 1 damage and bleed to the trooper hit this turn. Now, because he is bleeding, he has that condition. And the bleed condition states, during your activation, after you resolve an action other than the action listed below, you suffer 1 strain. But if this is given to an Imperial figure, that is going to be 1 damage instead of 1 strain. Next to activate for the Imperial forces is the new Stormtrooper unit.
Hostile in sight.
And for this unit's first action, they will all move into attack positions. Then, for their second action, they will all take aim and shoot at Fen. The first trooper shoots, and with that roll, they will use squad training. And with that reroll, the blue dice, and upon that reroll, the trooper will spend the 1 surge to do 1 damage, giving 3 damage to Fen and taking his health total to 5. The next Stormtrooper will shoot, and Fen will block 3 damage, so the trooper will spend the surge to do 1 damage to Fen, taking his health total to 4 health points. And the final member of the squad will shoot next, and with that roll, he will re-roll the blue dice thanks to squad training and will do better. And the trooper will spend the surge for +1 damage, meaning that Fen will take 2 more damage, taking his life total to 2. Next to activate is Fen,
Locked and loaded.
and he will discard the Bacta Infusion. And because he's going to discard this, he will recover 3 health and discard 1 harmful condition. But he doesn't have a harmful condition, but he heals 3. So Fen's health total goes to 5 hit points. He will then target the Imperial officer in front of him for his first action, and he will use his ability Havoc Shot, giving his rifle blast 1. And with that roll, the officer will cancel 1 damage and 1 surge, but Fen will spend that 1 surge to do 2 damage to the officer, making it a total of 3 damage to the officer, which will defeat him. And because of this, remember the rifle has blast 1, so all the troopers next to him will take 1 damage. Fen's second action is to shoot at the frontmost Stormtrooper, using Havoc Shot once again. This will mean that Fenn has maxed out his endurance, and with that roll, the Stormtrooper blocks all the damage, but Fenn will use that one surge to inflict 2 damage, defeating that trooper, and because of Havoc Shot, the other 2 troopers will receive 1 more damage each. And because there are no friendly figures adjacent to Fenn, he can also trigger his ability Lone Wolf, allowing him to recover 1 strain off his endurance. And that will end his turn. Next to activate for the Imperial forces is the Probe Droid. And for his first action, he will move further into the facility. And for his second action, it will target Garken, and with that roll, Garken will block 2 damage. And with all those surges, the Probe Droid will allocate 1 for Pierce, 1, and the Probe Droid will also recover 1 health, and 1 for +1 damage, taking Garken's amount of damage this turn to 3. So Garken's health total goes down to 10. And because he took more than 3 damage, he will trigger his Rage ability, allowing Garken to become focused. And because Garken is focused, when he declares an attack or an attribute test next, he can add 1 green dice to the dice pool. Next to activate is Gideon.
You are fortunate I am a peacekeeper.
And for his first action, he will shoot at the Stormtrooper to the left of him. And with that roll, the trooper will block 1 damage, but Gideon will use that surge to turn it to 1 damage, doing a total of 3 damage to the Stormtrooper, defeating him. For Gideon's second action, he will use his command ability and will target Fenn and inspires him to continue firing. And Fenn will target a Stormtrooper.
Ready when you are, Chief.
And with that roll, Fenn will finish off the wounded Stormtrooper. Last to activate for the Imperial forces is the lone Stormtrooper.
You there, get down on the ground, now!
And for his first action, he will get rid of the bleeding condition that he suffered from Garken's attack. And for his second action, he will take revenge and shoot at the Wookiee that chopped down his teammates. And with that roll, Garken blocks 2 of the damage, but the lone trooper will turn that surge into 1 damage to the Wookiee, taking Garken's health total to 9. But before the round ends, the Imperial player plays the card Tactical Explosives, and the card states choose 1 space on the map. Each figure within 3 spaces does an insight test. Whoever fails suffers 3 damage and becomes bleeding. As you can see, this is going to affect the whole team. So Fenn rolls for his insight test and passes. Garken rolls and fails, so he will take 3 damage and receive the bleeding condition. The Wookiee's health total is taken to 6 now. Gideon will roll and passes his insight test. And last to roll is Jyn, and she fails, meaning she will take 3 damage and also receive the bleeding condition. Jin's life total is now 7, thanks to her combat cloak. The Imperial player chooses to shuffle this card back into the agenda deck, and after that card being played, the Rebel squad have survived Wave 2. The pressure rises with each passing moment, but you're informed through your comlink that the other strike team is nearly finished. A detonation resounds through the corridors, originating from somewhere within the compound. It was only a matter of time before they tried to get in another way, but you curse your luck all the same. You just hope the explosion doesn't mean that they're already breached the compound and they are flooding inside. And at the end of round 4, the Imperial player deploys an elite Stormtrooper unit to the east side of the facility. And the Imperial player's threat is increased by 3. And with that, round 4 has concluded. The Rebel squad are holding on, but for how long? After a brutal agenda card being played, the tide might have just changed in the Empire's favour. But we cannot count out the Rebel squad, as there is still hope to be had, as the other team have almost completed their mission. So let's move into round 5. Round 5, and the Imperial player's threat goes from 5 to 9, and he will deploy a unit of Royal Guard to the north part of the facility, costing the Imperial player 8 threat to do so. Now, to begin round 5, Fen will give himself 2 additional movement points, thanks to tactical movement.
Let's get moving.
Gideon will also activate his C1 comlink, discarding it, and exhausting the probe droid, as it is a regular deployment card, so the probe droid will not activate this turn. And then Fen will activate first for the Rebel squad.
Let's lock and load.
And for his first action this turn, he will shoot the last remaining Stormtrooper to the north of the facility. And with that roll, the Stormtrooper is defeated. For Fen's second action, he will use the 2 additional movement points, and he will do a tactical retreat to safety down the main corridor of the facility. First to activate for the Imperials this round are the Royal Guard, and for both of their actions, they are going to be running into the facility and splitting up, making it hard for the Rebel squad to deal with them. Next to activate is Garken, and he will get rid of his bleeding condition he received at the end of the last round for his first action. And for his second action, he will rest, and in doing so, recover all of his endurance. And also, he will discard that emergency med pack he found in the round 1. And with discarding this card, the Wookiee will recover 5 health, taking his health total back up to 11. Next to activate is the Elite Stormtrooper unit.
Alright, men, load your weapons.
And for the unit's first action, they are all going to gain access to the facility on the eastern side. And their second actions are to shoot at the Wookiee. The first trooper shoots and rolls well, but the Wookiee blocks 3 of the damage, and the trooper re-rolls the blue die thanks to squad training, and with that re-roll, the roll is even better, and the trooper will use 1 surge to turn it to 2 damage. And that is how much Garken will take from this first shot, taking his health total from 11 to 9. The second trooper will shoot, and with that roll, Garken will cancel out the surge, and the Stormtrooper will do 3 damage to Garken, taking his health total to 6. The final trooper will shoot at Garken, and with that roll again, Garken tanks another bunch of damage, so the trooper will use squad training to re-roll the blue dice, and it is improved. So the trooper will spend 1 surge to do 2 more damage to the total, and his health total goes down from 6 to 4. Next to activate is Gideon.
Do not anger me.
And for his first action, he will go toe-to-toe with one of the Royal Guards. He will use his armoured gauntlets, and with that roll, he does well as the guardsman blocks 1 damage, and Gideon will spend the surges on +2 damage and stun, giving the guardsman the stunned ability. And the condition card states you cannot attack or voluntarily exit your space without discarding this condition. So the Royal Guard trooper will take 2 damage here. And for his second action, Gideon will use his command ability once again and will inspire Jin to move away from the corridor and take refuge in the adjacent room.
If anyone tries to capture me, I'll incinerate their brain.
Last to activate for the Imperial forces is the lone regular Stormtrooper,
Target sighted.
and he will target Garken once again for his first action. He shoots and does an impressive shot against the Wookiee, and Garken will block 2 damage, but the trooper will spend 1 surge to turn it to 1 damage, and the Wookiee will take 2 damage from the trooper, leaving his health total on 2. And last to activate for the Rebel squad is Jin.
You should all be running.
Her first action this turn is to discard the bleeding condition off her, so she discards the card so she can normally activate now. And then she will discard the adrenaline stim she found earlier, allowing her to recover 3 strain and become focused. And for her second action, she will take aim at the Royal Guard next to the door, as doors don't hinder line of sight and movement for the rebel figures. She shoots, and the roll is focused, so she gets to roll an additional green dice to the roll, and rolls well. The Royal Guard cancels out the strain, but will be taking 4 damage from Jin's blaster. But as round 5 comes to a close, a sound nearby freezes our heroes in their tracks. The Imperial player deploys an ATST on the eastern side of the facility. The specialists have arrived. Round 5 is in the books, and the Imperial forces have a big push deploying an ATST to the fallen facility. The rebel squad have not allowed any of the facility to be taken yet, so victory is still within reach. But in the last round, the Imperial forces overran the facility. Now the rebel squad has to hold on and hold their ground and fight to allow the other fire team to secure the information elsewhere on this planet. Will they do it? Let's find out in round 6. Round 6, the Imperial player's threat goes from 1 to 5 and chooses not to reinforce, and Fen will grant Gideon 2 additional movement points thanks to tactical movement.
Let's get moving.
First to activate for the rebel squad is Garkin, and he will use his ability Charge and will charge into the middle of the facility, leaving a room to be captured possibly at the end of this round. He charges into base to base with a Royal Guardsman, but the attack is on the one near the door closest to Jin. Due to the Vibro Axe having reach, he now will be attacking this figure. Now, as Garkin is focused, it actually changes the role, because Garkin has the ability Ferocity, allowing him to change the focused green die to a red dice. And with that roll, the Royal Guardsman blocks 1 damage, and Garkin will do 4 damage to the Guardsman, defeating him. But the Wookiee will spend the 1 surge to get Cleave 2, and he will do 2 damage to the adjacent Guardsman next to him. The Wookiee's second action is to attack the remaining Royal Guard, and with that roll, the Guardsman blocks 1 damage, but the Wookiee inflicts 4 more damage to the Guardsman, defeating him. First to activate for the Imperial forces is the ATST, and for its first action this turn, it is to move to the eastern entrance of the fallen facility, moving an elite stormtrooper in the process. Because of the vehicle's keyword massive, it pushes figures to an adjacent empty space. And for its second action, it will shoot at Garkin in the middle of the facility. And with that roll, the ATST will hit the Wookiee, but Garkin will block 3, but the vehicle will do 3 damage to the Wookiee, wounding him. And the ATST will spend 1 surge to do Blast 2, dealing 2 damage to Gideon, taking his health total from 12 to 10.
Ow!
As Gideon has the card Air of Command, giving him an additional +2 health. But the worst thing about this is Garkin is wounded, so he will lose some of his abilities. And as Garkin took a ton of damage this turn, Gideon will exhaust Life Debt, a card they picked up in this campaign, allowing him to become focused, due to the Wookiee being hit by the ATST. Next to activate is Gideon for the Rebel Squad.
We must stay vigilant.
And for his first action, he will use Command and inspire Fen to continue to do a tactical reposition to the end room of the facility. And then for his second action, Gideon will remain in the corridor and shoot at one of the elite stormtroopers. But this roll is not great, and the stormtrooper blocks 3 of the damage and will only take 1 damage from Gideon's infantry rifle this turn. Next to activate for the Imperial forces is the elite stormtroopers.
Let's teach this one a lesson.
And their first activation is to move up the facility to block the corridor and get into position for the next round. The squad's second activation will be to target Gideon and Garkin. The first trooper will target Gideon as he can see him. The trooper does an impressive 3 damage to Gideon as he only blocks 1 damage, and Gideon's health total goes down to 7.
Ow!
The second trooper will shoot at Garkin, and with that roll, the trooper will re-roll the blue die, thanks to squad training, and improves, but Garkin will cancel 1 surge, but the trooper will use that other surge to add 2 damage, taking the total to 4 and dealing that to the Wookiee, so his health total goes to 10. And the final trooper will also shoot at Garkin, and his roll isn't great, but thanks to squad training, he re-rolls the blue dice. And with Garkin cancelling 1 surge, the Wookiee will take 3 damage from this shot, taking his health total to 7. Next to activate for the Rebel forces is Jyn.
Should we band together, we'll survive this. Our enemies will not.
And for her first action, it is to rest, and she will recover 1 endurance and recover 3 health, taking her total to 10 thanks to her combat coat. Her second action will be to target the stormtrooper in front of Garkin, and with that roll, she gets the range, and the trooper will cancel the surge out, but will take 2 damage from Jyn's blaster. Next to activate is the lone stormtrooper.
You there. Disarm yourself.
And he will move to the outer part of the corridor for his first action, and will wait there for his second action too, to see the outcome of the battle. Last to activate for the Rebel squad is Fen,
Locked and loaded.
and for his first action he will rest, recovering 3 endurance and 1 health, taking his health total to 6. His second action is to wait with his finger on the trigger, waiting to see what the Imperial forces will do. And last to activate for the Imperial forces is the probe droid, and it will remain in the room for both of its actions, as it is the end of the round. And with that, the Imperial forces claim 1 room of the facility, and they are 3 rooms away from an Imperial victory. But the Rebel squad have survived Wave 3, but something approaches the facility, a force they have never felt before. The Rebel squad cannot hardly believe it, but striding through the field of fallen troopers is the imposing, terrifying figure of Darth Vader himself. A comlink message tells you that the other team is on its way out, but even though your job is done, the squad knows a few more minutes of diversion could make a world of difference to your comrades. The Imperial player's threat is increased by 3, taking it to 8, but the Imperial player deploys Darth Vader to the eastern side of the facility.
You will know the power of the dark side.
And with that, round 6 is in the books. The Rebel squad have lost 1 room in the facility and have begun to retreat into the facility to make their final stand. The Imperial forces have wounded 1 of our heroes and have taken a room, but with Darth Vader joining the battle, can the Rebel squad hold out a little longer? Let's find out in round 7. Round 7 begins, and the Imperial's threat goes from 8 to 12, and the Imperial player will spend 8 of his threat to deploy some Royal Guard to the eastern side of the facility, taking his threat total down to 4. And Fen will give himself +2 movement points thanks to tactical movement.
Let's get moving.
First to activate this round for the Rebel squad is Garkin. And for the Wookiee's first action, he will use the ability Charge, and he will charge into the elite stormtroopers. It will be an additional movement point to get through the squad, but he ends up where he wants to be, and he will attack the already wounded stormtrooper. And with his charge attack, The trooper will block 1 of the damage. So Garkan will spend the surge to cleave to do 2 damage onto the other wounded trooper, taking his total to 3. And the original stormtrooper he attacked will take 2 damage from this attack. And the Wookiee's second action will be to attack the same stormtrooper he charged. And with that roll, the trooper blocks 3 damage from Garkan, but 1 damage will go through, defeating him, and the Wookiee will spend the surge to do cleave 2 on the other stormtrooper, allowing him to also be defeated. Now, with 2 stormtroopers defeated, they trigger their ability Last Stand, so the final member of this squad becomes focused. First to activate this turn for the Imperial forces is the lone elite stormtrooper.
Let's teach this one a lesson.
For his first action, it is to move into the facility away from the Wookiee, and for his second action, the trooper will shoot at Gideon. But Jyn will interrupt the trooper's action using her ability Quick Draw, granting her a shot at the trooper. And with that roll, the trooper will block 2 damage, and Jyn will do 1 damage to the trooper, and spend 1 surge to stun the trooper thanks to Cheap Shot, and this will stop the trooper in his tracks. So for his second action, he will have to remove the stunned condition. Next to activate is Gideon.
This battle must come to an end.
And for his first action, it will be to shoot at the lone elite stormtrooper. As Gideon is focused, he will roll an additional green die, and with that roll, defeats the trooper, doing 5 damage to the already wounded stormtrooper. His second action is to reposition away from the ATSD and hide behind the console inside the corridor, still holding that room. Next to activate are the Royal Guard, and for both of their actions, they will advance into the facility, splitting up and contesting the main corridor. Next to activate is Fen,
Let's lock and load!
and for his first action this turn, he will shoot at the Royal Guard contesting the main corridor. And with that roll, Fen will only do 1 damage to the Royal Guard. And for Fen's second action, he will maneuver around the facility to help support Jyn in the final round, using the +2 movement points thanks to tactical movement. And he secures the corridor in doing so. Next to activate is the probe droid. And for its first activation, it will maneuver through the facility to contest the corridor room. And his second action will be to attack the door. And with that roll, the droid misses the shot due to not having enough range, but will spend 1 surge to recover 1 damage, taking the probe droid back to full health. Last to activate for the Rebel squad is Jyn,
If this is not appealing to you, we have nothing to talk about.
and she will recover for her first action. This will mean that she has no strain and she is back to full health. And for her second action, she will shoot at the Royal Guardsman next to Gideon. And with that attack roll, she doesn't hit due to not having enough range to make the shot. Now, with no more Rebel activations, the Imperial forces will activate their remaining forces and will begin with the lone stormtrooper.
Open the blast doors.
And for his first action, he will move through the facility to the main corridor. And for his second action, he will shoot at the far door of the facility, and the trooper does 2 damage to the door as it has a built-in 1 defense, leaving the door on 4 health. Next to activate is the ATSD, and for its first action will move 1 space, but not into the facility due to his rule of massive and the ruling in the campaign book. And for his second action, he will shoot the door down the corridor, and with that attack roll, does a ton of damage to the door, as it has the range and leaves the door on 1 health point. Last to activate this turn is Darth Vader,
This will be a day long remembered.
and for both of his actions, he will enter the facility into the middle of the highly contested room in the middle of the facility.
Your destiny lies with me.
And that is round 7 in the books. The Imperial forces have finally broken through the rebel defences and are swarming the facility, trying to capture the rooms needed to secure their victory. But yet again, when there is hope, there is a way. The rebel squad are still standing tall and doing enough to hold the Imperial forces at bay. But let's see how this scenario will unfold in the final round of round 8. Round 8 begins and the Imperial player's threat goes from 4 to 8 and will spend 6 threat to deploy a regular squad of stormtroopers onto the north side of the facility. And Fen will give himself 2 additional movement points thanks to tactical movement.
Let's get moving.
First to activate this round for the rebel squad is Gideon.
You are fortunate I am a peacekeeper.
And his first action this turn is to shoot at the stormtrooper down the facility's corridor. And with that attack roll, Gideon does 3 damage to the trooper as it has range and defeats the lone stormtrooper. And for his second action, Gideon will do a tactical retreat to the facility's room to join Fen and Jin in making their final stand. First to activate this round for the Imperial forces is the AT-ST. And for its first action this round, it will shoot once again at the blast doors down the corridor. And with that attack roll, gets the range and destroys the door, and will spend 1 surge to do blast 2, dealing Jin 2 damage as she was next to the door, taking her health total to 10 thanks to her combat code. The AT-ST will not do anything with its second action and remain blocking the eastern door. Next to activate is Garkin. And for the Wookiee's first action, he will move into the main corridor, but because he's wounded, he cannot contest the corridor's room. And for his second action, he will attack the Royal Guard next to him. And with that attack roll, the Wookiee will do 1 damage to the Guardsman as he blocked 2 damage. But Garkin will spend the surge to do an additional damage to the Guardsman and give him the bleeding condition, which is a harmful condition, and during your activation, after you resolve an action other than the action listed below, you suffer 1 strain. Again, because it's an Imperial figure, it will do 1 damage to it. Next to activate for the Imperial forces is the Royal Guard, and the one with the bleeding condition will walk up the corridor and will take 1 damage for doing this action. And with his second action, he will attack the door, and with that attack roll, does 3 damage to the door, leaving it on 1 health point. And the Guardsman will take another point of damage because of the bleeding condition. The next Guardsman will activate, and for his first action will walk into one of the facility's rooms occupied by the rebel squad. And then for his second action will attack Fen. But Jin will interrupt the attack using Quick Draw, trying to stall the Guardsman in his tracks. And with that attack roll, she gets the range and inflicts 1 damage to the Royal Guard. But she will spend that surge thanks to Cheap Shot applying another stun condition on him. So the Royal Guard, for his second action, will have to remove the stunned condition. Next to activate is Fen.
Let's lock and load!
And for both his actions this turn, he will shoot at the Royal Guard in front of him. The first shot rolls and does 3 damage to the Guardsman, as it will block 1 damage from Fen's attack. Fen's second shot isn't bad either, but the Royal Guard will block 2 again, but Fen will spend the surge to apply 2 damage to the roll, doing another 3 damage, leaving the Guardsman on 1 health point. Next to activate for the Imperial forces this round is the Stormtrooper unit.
Alright, men, load your weapons.
And for all their actions, they will storm the north part of the facility to help secure the corridor room. Last to activate for the rebels this round is Jin.
Now, let's see.
And for her first action this round, she will shoot at the Royal Guardsman near her. And with that roll, she will defeat the last Royal Guardsman. And because she defeated him, she will use her ability Opportunist, moving herself into the corridor room to contest that room. And for her second action, she will shoot at the stormtrooper in front of her. And with that attack roll, Jin will spend the surge to turn it to 1 damage and 1 pierce, doing 4 damage in total to the trooper, defeating him. And because she defeated another character, she'll use Opportunist once again to move herself into the corridor room to contest it from being taken. Now, with no more Rebel squad activations, the Imperials have 2 more activations. And next to activate is Darth Vader.
Now it ends.
And for his first action, he will walk into the middle of the corridor and end up base to base with Jin and Garken. And for his second action, he'll use the ability Brutality, allowing him to perform 2 attacks, and each attack must have a different target. And with that action being taken, Vader will attack Garken and Jin. His first swing of his lightsaber is on Garken, and with that attack roll, the Wookiee blocks 1, but Vader will spend 1 surge to apply Pierce 3 and the other surge for 2 additional damage, meaning the Wookiee will take 7 damage and is withdrawn from the game because of him being wounded already. So Vader will now attack Jin thanks to Brutality, and with that attack roll, Jin will use her combat coat, changing that surge cancel to blocking 1 damage, and she will then take 3 damage from Vader's lightsaber, taking her health points from 10 to 7. The last Imperial model to activate this round is the probe droid. As the Rebel squad have fully activated, the probe droid's first action is to move next to Jin in the facility. And for its second action, he will attack the Rebel smuggler. And with that attack roll, Jin blocks 1 damage, but the probe droid will spend 1 surge to pierce 1, and the other surge to do 1 damage, meaning Jin will take 4 damage from the droid. And at the end of the round, the probe droid will use its ability Self-Destruct, allowing the droid to roll 1 red dice as it explodes. And as it is in both base to base with Jin and Vader, they will take this damage. And the droid will do 3 damage to Vader, and more importantly, Jin, meaning she will become wounded. And as she is wounded, she cannot contest that room, meaning the Imperial forces have taken the room. But as this is the end of round 8 and the rebels have only lost 2 rooms of the facility, they have held their ground against the Imperial threat, and the rebel squad wins the scenario. Even though the call came for the rebel squad to pull back several minutes ago, the squad held off the overwhelming odds. You're told later that the few extra minutes meant the other strike team had clear skies to escape. Your squad's pilot wasn't thrilled about the enemy fighters that came to deal with you, but it still worked out. The recon team's success has revealed a new weapon project under General Vice's development, and their findings suggest that this should be a great concern for the rebellion. And with that being said, guys, that is the end of this scenario of Under Siege. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've played Imperial Assault. I know I've made you guys, I kept you guys waiting for this episode. I do apologize for that. A lot of personal stuff and not time for, editing and stuff has come to that, but it's out and I'm really, really glad how it turned out. Hopefully you guys did as well. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like. A like is much appreciated. Leave a comment, tell me your thoughts. I think I might have got some rules wrong, but hey, remember, we make mistakes so you don't have to. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We're going to be bringing these out more frequently this year now that I've got my life together, shall we say. But the next scenario is going to be a ton of fun because it is called Imperial Hospitality. Now, that is going to be the next main storyline, thanks to the Rebels winning this scenario. But yeah, with that being said, guys, take care, have a good one, and yeah, we'll see you in the not too distant future for more Imperial Assault here on Bleeped Up Productions.